Alrighty, so this assignment is activity 134, CAD modeling skills, and we're going to scroll down about halfway to the instructions and then go ahead and find an IED Green 2. It is activity 314A, CAD practice. That's where you're going to be creating this file. And give it the normal name convention, 314 and A, and then your last name. So there's going to be an A and B, which is why you're naming it A right now. So the first thing that we're going to do is sketch a rectangle, and I want you to actually sketch not the 2-point rectangle, but a center rectangle. So you have to go to the drop down to find that one. Click on the origin, and then you're going to do a 4-inch by 6-inch rectangle. And there we are, and you can see that it has those nice construction lines going through the corners. Now we're going to add some polygon shapes to this, and I want you to take a look at these polygon shapes. So if you look at that first one, the dimension is actually going from the center to the side of the polygon, and then in the second one, the dimension is going from the center to a corner. So there's two different ways that you can make polygons. The first one that we're going to make is that one where we do the dimension from the center to a side, and that is called a circumscribed polygon. And you can see how the polygon is outlining the circle. That means it's circumscribing the circle. And we're going to make that a 0.35-inch diameter or radius polygon and make sure that it has 5 sides. And if you do that wrong, just delete it and fix it. This is actually the third time that I tried making that polygon. I just edited out the mistakes. And now this one, we're going to make this a 0.25. Oop, I screwed that one up. Hang on. Switch to inscribed polygon. And so you can see this time the circle is on the outside of my polygon. We're going to make this a 0.25 radius polygon. And we do want it to be 6. We want that one to be a hexagon. So now we've got our pentagon and our hexagon. And so you can see the difference in how the dimensions look. So from the center to the side and the center to the corner. If your dimensions don't match up, go back and try those again. Now we're going to make an equilateral triangle. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and create, and I'm going to do the edge polygon this time. It doesn't really matter which one you do, but I'll make that edge. And then once I do that side dimension, I just need to change that. Instead of 6, I just need to change that to 3 sides, and now I have a triangle. And then I think it's easiest to just do a quick sketch dimension of that, and we wanted that length there to be 1.25 inches, and now it is. And now we're going to take a look at actually dimensioning and constraining these objects. We've got their side lengths, and actually you might notice that the triangle dimension is a little bit off, but I'm going to fix that a little bit later on, so don't worry, it'll get fixed. We're going to go ahead and do these dimensions here, and these are the steps, and I think it's helpful to just follow those steps along, so I've highlighted those. And so the first step that we're going to do is we are going to constrain the center of that pentagon through that vertical line in the center of our rectangle. And I'm going to create a construction line that goes right from the center. Notice that I'm letting the triangles highlight, and it's already lined up along that y-axis because we did a center rectangle. And now I'm just doing a coincident constraint to that vertical line, and then click escape, and now we're going to do a horizontal constraint to the bottom line, and the last thing that we want is to constrain that vertically so that the horizontal line is 0.5 inches from the center, and that should properly constrain our pentagon. And now we're going to do our hexagon. So for the hexagon, one side needs to be parallel to the 6-inch side of the rectangle, which basically means that one side of the hexagon needs to be horizontal. So I'm just going to click that, and again, make it, well, I'm going to go ahead and make it parallel to the 6-inch side, but you could do the exact same thing by clicking the horizontal vertical button. Next, we want the center of the hexagon to be coincident with that angled line. And so I'm going to use the coincident button, center of the hexagon, and then that dotted line. And now those are constrained together. And last, we need that center of the hexagon to be 1/2 inch away from the top. And so we'll use sketch dimension, that center, and then click the top side and drag that out, and then we just put in 0.5. And now that one's constrained. Okay. Just, accidentally tried to constrain the 4 inches, which would be unnecessary. Just wanted to drag that out so that it looks the way that it does in the picture. There we go. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to do is make one vertex of the equilateral triangle coincident with the corner rectangle. And now you're going to see why the way that I have that dimensioned is incorrect. Right now, I have this like vertical height basically of the triangle is 1.25 instead of the side being 1.25. So when I constrained this, that totally messed up the size of my triangle. And I got really confused. And I was trying to figure out how to fix that. So let me show you here in a second how I do fix that. First, I'm going to make another mistake, and I just think that it's helpful for you to see what kinds of things can happen if you don't constrain things properly. So I'm just going to let you guys watch these mistakes here. Okay, finally, I'm going to try to just go ahead and constrain it the way that I'm supposed to and constrain that center to the diagonal again. And it's still making that error. And so I finally decided, well, maybe I just need to delete that dimension and then dimension the side instead, and that's where I do it properly. And so you want that dimension to be parallel to the side and not come out like the height of the triangle. So now that is correct, and at this point you should see all of your dimensions, all of your lines of the sketch should be in black at this point. And I cannot for the life of me figure out why my pentagon is still not fully black. You can see here I'm trying to figure out what could possibly still be moving on that pentagon that would make it not fully constrained. I'm really just not sure. And so if your pentagon is still showing up, see, sometimes it looks like it's black and sometimes it looks like it's blue. So if that's how your pentagon looks right now, don't worry. If yours is fully constrained, if yours is black, then don't worry. It didn't seem to bother any of the rest of what I was doing with this particular assignment. Okay, now we're going to take a look at these different patterns. There's a circular pattern, a rectangular pattern, and a linear pattern. First thing that we're going to do is the circular pattern of pentagons. So go to the Create menu, and you're going to come down to Circular Pattern. And now we're going to select the objects, which are the lines of the pentagon. So select all 5 of those. And now we're going to select the center point. Click on that button, and then select the center of your rectangle. And then we can increase the quantity to 5. That's how many they have in the example. And those all look good. So you go ahead and click OK. All right. Next thing that we're going to do is the rectangular pattern of hexagons. And notice that we have to have one shape missing. So we'll go to Create, rectangular pattern. And then we're going to do the lines of, there we go, just select the lines, and you might find that it is easier if you zoom in and select the lines of the hexagon. So we have 6 selected, and now we're going to do the distances so you can see kind of what they're supposed to look like there. If we drag on these little sliders, then we can work on the different directions that they go. I'm going to try symmetric, and so you can see then the hexagons come out on either side, but that is not what they're going for here. It looks like the hexagons are being pulled out to the left instead. So I'm going to change that to one direction and just pull them the opposite direction. And so right now I have that set on extent, and I'm going to change it to spacing. And so you can change how far apart the hexagons are spaced, and when it's extent, it's how over what distance are the hexagons total spaced out. So you can actually control the difference between those. And then I only did one row of them, so I need to go back and do the other row. And to fix that, I'm trying to find out the spot. But there it is, that little button there that looks like the pattern button, that's where you can edit that rectangular button. We found it. Okay, now I am going to do another distance or another direction, and I'm messing with that just a little bit to show how we can change the spacing. And then I need to figure out how to do the second direction. And oh, there we go. I just needed to increase that, and now I have another arrow, and I can drag those down. But they're like right on top of each other. They're right next to each other. So I'm going to spread those out a little bit more. And that looks pretty good. But remember, we also have to get rid of one of those hexagons. And so that's where we can uncheck one of those shapes. And comparatively, it looks like my hexagons aren't spread out quite as much, but that's still fine. We'll go ahead and uncheck that one, and now I have one missing hexagon. There we go. So I've got those designs good, and now we're going to do that linear pattern of triangles. And so the pattern is actually going along the diagonal line. Altogether, there are 7 triangles. And you can see that they're just all evenly spaced out. I was checking to make sure that there wasn't one missing. There is not one missing. It just kind of looks like there are towards the end where they're not overlapping as much. So now I'm going to select, we did rectangular pattern again, but this time where it says direction, you're going to select that dotted line, that diagonal line, and we're going to increase the quantity to 7. And it looks like that's too far apart, so I'm just going to drag that arrow and bring it to where it looks about right. It's supposed to be just a little bit under where that pentagon is, so that looks pretty good there. And this looks like it's all matching up okay. Still have those weird blue lines on those pentagons, but everything I think is fine. It doesn't seem to be doing anything there. I tried to see if I could figure out how to edit that, but I'm still not quite sure, so that's okay. All right, now we've got our sketch done, and we're going to extrude it next. So click Finish Sketch, and then I like clicking that Home button so that I can see the object, and that makes it easier, I think, to extrude. It doesn't give you an exact dimension to extrude to, so you just kind of have to estimate. And the other thing is, notice that we're going to have 3 little triangle line gaps over in that corner, and that makes it a little bit tricky. So highlight just the shape and go ahead and extrude that up. I'm going to pull that up just a little bit. And this was a little tricky for me to try to remember how best to select those triangles. So once I've extruded that up, now I'm trying to zoom in so that I can highlight just the right parts of the shape. And so I'm selecting parts of that triangle I selected the whole plate and then started working on selecting just those little pieces in between. And I was kind of struggling to get those selected. So what I finally realized I could do was just view it from the top. And then that made it a lot easier to figure out which portions I needed to highlight and which I didn't need to highlight. So we can see the shape that we want to get so much more easily now. And then we'll select this last one. And that looks like the correct shape. And let's click OK and see. Now from the home, that looks right. So not too shabby. Okay, now we need to go back into sketch mode. We're going to create a new sketch on top of this surface. So create sketch and then click the top of that surface. And now we're going to do a projection. So if you look back over here at the instructions, it's going to have us create another extrusion with those pentagons. And we're going to be using the offset and project tools to do this. And you may notice in the instructions that it doesn't tell you which ones that you need to project, but you can go to your drop-down, create, project, or it is a hotkey, so you can just click P on your keyboard to turn on the projection. And now we're going to select the geometry that we're going to project, and it doesn't matter which of the 3 pentagons we pick. You can pick 3 that are right next to each other, pick 2, and then another one. It does not matter at all. But now I have my 3 selected, and I'm going to click OK, and that has projected onto this sketch, and you can tell that because they are the purple lines that have projected. Now we're going to do the offset tool, and we want to do a new pentagon that is 0.1 inches outside of the projected area, and then also add some fillets. So go ahead and click that offset tool, and then we're going to select the sides, and they're highlighting, and you can see it's automatically doing a little bit of a offset there, and I'm just going to type in 0.1 inches. And now I do want you to do all 3 of those and do an offset, but I'm just going to show you guys on one. And now I'm going to do the fillets. And again, just selecting on that one, and then I'm going to change that to 0.2 inches. So you guys can see how I'm doing one of those, but I need you for your assignment to do all 3 of the pentagons that you projected. I'm looking for all 3 of them in the assignment that you're turning in. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and finish that sketch, and I'm going to just show you the extrusion with one of them, but remember you need to extrude all 3 of your projected pentagons. I'm going to hide that first sketch that I did just so that I can focus on this second sketch. Select that and extrude it up. Half an inch is fine. It doesn't specify. And there we go. Hide both of our sketches now, and you've got a finished piece.